I've got good news and bad news. I'm Brian Wyatt, an elder at Fremont, and as we come to the first chapter of Romans, we find good news and bad news. Now, the bad news is bad, really bad, but the fact that it's bad actually makes the good news really, really good. The bad news revealed in the Bible is that people have an unrighteousness problem. We are not right with the people around us. We're not right with the world. We are most certainly not right with the God who made us. Instead of being righteous, that is, right with God, we are unrighteous. This is because we are all of us, sinners. In Romans 1:18, Paul tells us that the wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men and women, who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. That's a mouthful, so let's unpack it quickly, starting with the idea of the wrath of God. God's wrath is not an emotion that comes and goes. It's not a mood that varies with circumstances. In Fleming Rutledge's words, God's wrath is his steady, consistent opposition to sin. God, being the very definition of righteousness, is steadily, consistently opposed to the rebellion of his creation. So how does that rebellion show up? It shows up first, Paul tells us, by unbelief. People suppressing the truth. We push back against the truth like it's a coiled spring. And what is the truth that we suppress? That we are not in control. We absolutely hate the idea that we are not in control. We seek autonomy. We want to rule ourselves. Thomas Nagel, a religious skeptic, wrote in 1997 that he experiences fear of religion. I want atheism to be true, and am made uneasy by the fact that some of my most intelligent and well-informed friends are religious believers. It isn't that I don't believe in God and naturally hope that I'm right in my belief. It's that I hope there is no God. I don't want there to be a God. I don't want the universe to work like that. That kind of pushing back against the rule of God has actually characterized all people since the events of Genesis 3. Our desire to decide for ourselves what is good and what is evil causes us to fail to honor God, to thank Him, let alone to obey Him. When we fail to respond to God as He deserves, our text tells us that our thinking becomes futile. We turn to idols, things that are created and cannot take us seriously enough to judge us, but we worship them anyway. Now, God responds to foolish and idolatrous truth suppressors, according to Paul, by giving them over to various sins. This idea of giving them over is a legal term. As the righteous judge, God sentences people who persist in sin to more sin. The penalty in the Bible for sin is more sin. It's as if God says, you want to live without me? You want to live without me? Okay, have at it. God gives the rebels over to their rebellion. He gives them over to that ungodliness and unrighteousness in ever-increasing measure. Our text lists 21 sins to which God gives people over. Everything from misused sexuality to gossip to arrogance. The list of sins is uncomfortable and clearly not exhaustive. I can find myself on that list. It is important that we accurately diagnose our condition. If we say we don't have any sin, if we say we don't naturally want to live as rebels, we deceive ourselves. This is the bad news, that we are in serious trouble because of our sin. Now, the good news. Paul literally uses that term, good news, when he writes about the gospel of God concerning His Son, the one who died on the cross and was raised from the dead. The good news is that God did not scour the earth looking for a faithful man to start a new religion and then find Jesus. No, God became a faithful man and did powerfully in Jesus what was necessary, all that was necessary to save those who believe from the coming judgment of God. You see, to borrow Tim Keller's expression, God is a complex character. He is a God of wrath who pours out judgment against our sin in a way that should make us give up everything to find a shield from it. And He is also a God who took on the likeness of sinful flesh and became the shield we needed. Our text teaches us that God justified us by faith. And now, having solved our unrighteousness problem, God commands us to live differently as people of the truth. We are to exhibit what Paul calls in verse 5, the obedience of faith. The bad news is really bad, but that's what makes the good news really, really good. As we go through our day today, let's be sensitive to any ways in which we are still suppressing the truth about God. Let us offer those ways to God in prayer. Let's ask for his help in unashamedly sharing the good news, the really good news of Jesus Christ. And let us thank him again for who he is and for what he has done.